where we keep you updated on what is happening. The long-awaiting portfolio for the minister designate has actually been out, awaiting the inauguration, which is stated to take place on Monday. So we hope that you sit tight as we take you down some of the stories, apart from just the minister's portfolio that is out. I am Sarah Elisha Dashim, and I'll be doing this together with Rachel Tenze. Good morning.
Morning,
How
Sarah.
you doing?
I'm fine. How about you?
I'm great, sparkling, ready for today's show.
Yes.
We're live on Facebook and on YouTube. You can follow us live there. Drop your comment or your contribution of any of the story that is of interest to you this morning. And we will be starting with the leadership newspaper.
On the leadership newspapers, Jais Bank appoints Ahmed Hassan as acting MD and CEO. NNPCL secures $3 billion Afrizim facility to stabilize exchange rate. You can find the details on page 29. Amid hardship, Nigerians spent 10.5 billion naira to watch movies. You can find the details of this story on page 7. DSS alert on planned attack on Abuja Kaduna rail line, and I believe precautions should be taken. You can find more details on page 7. The big story on leadership: Tinubu's cabinet portfolio, spring surprises among ministers designated. You can find the details on page 4. We can see where there are picture stories showing these ministers, where we see Nyesom Wike as the Minister of FCT. We can see Dele Alake as the Minister of Solid Minerals. We can see Badara as the Minister of Defense, and we can see Umaya as the Minister of Works, and many other portfolios for these ministers. Do well to get the leadership newspaper and find details on page 4. And that's all the news on leadership newspaper.
Still on this day newspaper, we have Tinubu assign portfolios to the 45 minister designate ahead of Monday's swearing in. The writer here we have Kenyamu Aviation, Baduru Defense, Oyetola Transportation, Badugu Budget, Umahi Works, and Wike FCT Minister. Do well to grab the paper and read more detail of other minister designate portfolios. We have the First Bank Holdings announce Otetola as the non-executive director. And on the forex crisis, we must export else things will not get better, says Obaseki. You can find that on page 6, and I hope that we take that advice by being an exporting country rather than just importing. So we could take that advice and read more detail on how we expect to do that coming from the governor of Edo State. Here we have Tinubu, Jonathan, Mark, Bago, Obaseki rejoiced with Babangida on his 82nd birthday. You can find more detail of that. The big story for this day: NNPCL gets $3 billion loan from Afrix Bank to stabilize the forex and naira gains. The writers following that say funds to be released in installment repay with crude oil. Petrol prices may fall on increasing dollar liquidity. Articles 8 is saying fresh loan dubious attempt to stabilize the naira. Says government that detain verify Emifele for taking the forex loan to defend naira, also going same route. And then we have nation's currency appreciates to 880 naira per dollar on the parallel market, 759 naira per dollar on the I&E window. So we can find more detail. It seems the naira is beginning to appreciate a little, so you can read more detail of that. We have the picture story here where we can see the Kuzan Urban Renew Road project. Do well to find more detail of any of the story inside the paper.
On the Nation newspaper, a statement coming from Chidoka: PDP will collapse if not reformed. Tight security mounted to prevent attack on railways. Ahmed Hassan is Jais Bank acting MD and CEO. How ABUAD is raising bar for academic excellence. You can find more details on page 16. The big story on the Nation newspaper: key portfolios for Edun, Alake, Oyetola, Fabemi, and Adilabu. We have the writer saying ahead Monday's inauguration, President assigns duties to ministers designate. You can find more details on page 4. Still on the paper, NNPCL's $3 billion buffer to strengthen Naira stabilized exchange rate. How new move will boost economy. by the presidency, Naira firms up against dollar, and we are looking forward to see more of that upward rise for the currency as it is now. You can find more details on page 4, and that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
On Blueprint newspaper, terrorists plotting another attack on Abuja Kaduna train SS1s, and I hope that we take this one in seriously. We will recall what happened the last train attack that was, and then the kidnappers, some of the people that died, others that actually their health deteriorated.
Yeah.
So we hope something will be done about that. For this warning, let's have security agency mounting that rail station. Still on Blueprint newspaper, we have federal government raised 4.46 trillion naira from bonds in 8 months to breach budget deficit. You can find the story on page 22. The big story is still on Tinubu breaks jokes, names Wike FCT Minister Malaga information. With the rider minister retained petroleum minister moves Niger Delta minister to the SGF. Pantemi, Man's Health and Social Development, Kiyamo Aviation, Pet, Edu Humanitarian, Badaru Health Defense, Alake Hold Solid Minerals, and then we have Umahi Works, Fabemi AGT, and then Marine and Blue Economy. You can do well to find more detail because it seems to be what is taking the lead in most of the papers this morning. Downside, we have 48 cases of CVP2 polio virus recorded in 28 states. Now that we have the minister, we hope that they begin to do something quick and fast vaccination concerning the polio virus. You can find more of that on page 5. Investors trade shares worth 7.432 billion naira. You can find that on page 23. Board announces assets holding delay in half-year results. You can find on page 23. Amid federal government less borrowing plan, NMPCL seeks $3 billion naira stabilization loan, with the writer saying experts CSO in mixed reaction in regard to that borrowing. So you can do well to find more detail on page 6, and that's all on Blueprint newspaper.
On Voice of Liberty, terrorist attack on Abuja Kaduna trade imminent, coming from DSS. Nigeria get Afrizim $3 billion to fight Naira speculators, coming from NNPCL. APC more merger with opposition parties, coming from Ganduje. The big story on Voice of Liberty, Tinubu finally releases ministerial portfolios. Wike appointed FCT Minister Umahi to work. We have President Bola Tinubu has assigned portfolios to the ministerial nominees recently cleared for appointment by the Senate of the National Assembly. Still on Voice of Liberty, 16.25 trillion naira lost to oil theft from 2009 to 2020, report coming from NEITI. Custom ditched $3.2 billion modernization project for intelligence per ship with WCO. Dailies seizes 56.9 million naira illicit drugs in the Federal Capital Territory, arrests 343 suspects. At the downside of the paper, Nigerians take too much rubbish from politicians. A statement coming from Emir Sanusi says we can't be intimidated by anybody. And that's all the news on Voice of Liberty.
On the Punch newspaper, federal government tackle forest crisis with $3 billion loan. Atiku knocks Tinubu. You can find that on page 19. Nigeria earned $742 billion oil revenue in 21 years, coming from the NEITI. Naira rebounds, trade 850 naira per dollar at the parallel market. You can find that too on page 10. The big story is still on ministerial portfolio. Oil workers demand results as Tinubu head the petroleum ministry. With the writer here still giving us some of the people that are actually heading some of the ministry. And we have manufacturer sent agenda for industry minister. NECA says portfolios based on track record, so you can find more of that. We have the picture story of some of the few people there, and then by the side we are having some of the responsibility being given to them. Still on the issue of the helicopter crash, Army chief deploy more soldiers in Niger State. Villagers flee. You can find that on page 7. Also panic in Ibadan settlement at Mugaji. Still 200 houses. You can find on page 28. Miscreants, terrorists, Lagos communities, government vows clampdown. You can find on page 4 and 5, and that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On Vanguard, starting with the big story, Wike Umahi Edunget, FCT Works and Finance Minister, with the writer saying no minister assigned to Niger Delta and Affairs Ministry. You can find more details on page 5. Sanusi to Nigerians, don't allow president governors intimidate you. Naira appreciates as NNPCL boosts forex supply with $3 billion loan. President explained disbursement and benefit of loan. You can find more details on page 11, and we have a column down by the NNPC saying 63.84 trillion naira Nigerian crude oil was stolen in the last decade. You can find more details inside the paper. We still have pictures showing some of the ministerial portfolios for each minister that were nominated and screened out, and that's all the news on Vanguard newspaper.
Well, before we move forward, I think it is imperative we talk about this portfolios of the ministers, and it's really, I think this really gladdens the heart of Nigerians to know the fact that after the screening, finally the portfolios have been attached, their responsibilities have been assigned to them, and hopefully by Monday the inauguration will take place so that they can actually mount their various ministry and start doing something. But you know, Nigerians have raised a concern.
Yes.
If you check the portfolio of all these ministers, even though we have the Northwest being represented ably, but we are seeing that Kaduna State is not being represented, and it's expected that for every state a minister is being represented from the states. But then we've seen that it was supposed to be the Aerofy, but because of some security report,
Yes.
he was not being screened by the ministry. They said they're still working on. So maybe. Hopefully the Senate, by the time they're back, they'll be able to do something. Then we'll have somebody from that state, because no state should be left out, because you have to bring something to the table. So every state should feel being, ably represented. Even if Aerofy is not being given, somebody else that is capable should be picked from that state and be represented, because if you check the portfolio for other states, more than one person is being represented, and of course you will hear that other states will feel being left out because everybody is supposed to be there. So for these portfolios, it is our desire as Nigerians that the ministers that have been, screened will do the right thing. Of course, Nigerians have raised concern that it seems as if this ministry is full of people who did not really perform properly in their various states, and then they are being given. And then questions, of course, will come to the fact that if you're unable to represent your state either as a governor or a one-time one of the public office holders, how sure Nigerians are that when you are a minister right now, you will do the right thing? And so I'm just hoping that the right will be done, even though concern for Nigerians will be that the portfolios did not really match their areas of specialty. For instance, if you're going to take a look at Kiyamo, who is presently being given the Minister of Aviation, he is a barrister. So you will expect that possibly he should head an office that is related to his field of study. We recall that in the past government, he was the Minister of State for Employment, and he complained bitterly after 8 years that he did not get the power, or he wasn't given the right to do certain things. So we hope this won't be the case right now. I hope for every of the ministers, we do not want to hear a reason why you're unable to do this or you not do this. We have like Dave Umai, who is the Minister of Works. He is a senator representing his state. We are having Dila like he, who is also representing the presidency, being given a ministry too. So we're hoping to see some of these people really doing the right thing. It's not just about having a portfolio, but I mean, it's not bad if you come out and tell the president, I'm sorry, I can't take this appointment. I want to do something else. I think that Nigerians will really honor you, that you are a person of integrity, whether a man or a woman of integrity. But we do not want a case where you mount a ministry and then for the first 4 years, nothing is being done, because I know Nigerians right now are not even patient enough to wait for you to get to 4 years anymore. If you are not performing well, I think you come back home and then another person will be represented. So we hope that all of these ministers that have been given responsibility will actually do what is expected of them to do in their various ministry.
Of course, Sele, there are certain positions that when you look at it, you'll be like, yes, certain expertise is not needed. All that is needed from you is competency and being a good administrator. We can look at works, we can look at Ministry of Employment, and then we can also look at the Minister of the FCT. And we can say, yes, these positions, of course, we might not need an expert to say, okay, you have to be a doctor to be in this position, you have to be a lawyer, or you have to be from a certain line of work. As long as your track record match that you can be a good administrator, you will be able to delegate and take the right step when it's needed. And then I believe that you can fit in into those positions. However, yes, there are very key ministries that are in need of people who have past experience with that field. For example, when it comes to aviation, Sele, why are we not having someone whom have worked with aviation for years and understand the business, understand the dealing, and understand the working of it? Because we won't be surprised if later we still see a complaint coming from KMO saying he was fixed in a place that is not his expertise and all of that. And when you look at the Ministry of Defense also, for example, I believe this is a place that we should be having a general who had a track record of fighting Boko Haram, of having a troop that did something meaningful in Nigeria. Because I want to believe that there were troops that headed the war against Boko Haram that we had it coming down, where the past administration of President Muhammadu Buhari said Boko Haram has been, there's no case of that and all of that. Who were the military personnel in charge of those operations at that they were success? These are the people we needed to see being nominated in the first place as ministers, and knowing fully well that such key positions will come from them. Because I believe that these are very delicate part of the country, especially when it comes to insecurity, that we need people with experience. It's not just administrative work, it's not just office work that you will sit down and say this should be this. You
And
need
that
to
you
be
will learn in the
someone,
work.
you won't learn on the work. We need people that have the experience for such position. So yes, in as much as there are positions that, because there was a statement coming from NECA that there was no politics in this selection, but rather that it was followed based on their competence and past achievement. I would like to say yes, for some of these portfolios we can agree that these people are okay for that position. However, for some, I want to believe that the government could have done better in regarding who was put in certain position, because some offices truly need experience. It needs years and years of experience, because you have to know how to work this ministry. We are seeing what is happening in Nigeria as it is now, and we shouldn't go for anything less than people who have the experience to be able to take certain sector to the next level.
True, true, true. So I just think at this moment right now, there's little or nothing we can do. But just to keep our fingers crossed, inauguration has been set for Monday. But we hope all
Yes.
of these concerns that are being raised by Nigerians talking about, I will remember before the list came out, Nigerians were like, the president truly need a ministry full of, and technocrats and also
Yes.
politicians that actually know the in and out. At the time when Nigeria is sinking, we're seeing even on the paper borrowing again, just so that we can stabilize our naira. So we need people that are intelligent in all of this field. You mentioned one of the very key sector that really need, expertise, talking about aviation, defense, health, even education. We know what happened during the strikes we had in our tertiary
Yes.
institution. Why? Because the minister that was heading there look as if he didn't really have, because he didn't
Yeah.
have to apologize
He had to
that he didn't do
apologize.
the right thing.
True.
So I think Nigerians are done with
With
apologies
that,
right now. We
yes.
just need people that will walk the talk. So let's just give them the benefit of doubt
We
and hope
should.
that they will
Yeah.
do the right thing.
True.
Well, let's take a look at the Daily Times newspaper. Again, Boko Haram hosts flag in Niger community days after NAV chopper crash. And then we have Governor Council Chair disagree on cause of crash. Military authorities vowed decimation. You can find more detail of what happened in Niger State and what the Boko Haram are intending to do, and what the security agency are also hoping that they would give no peace to the people causing trouble in that state. The big story for the Daily Times here said Tinubu names Wiki as FCT minister, Umahi minister of works, and then yet to name the minister of petroleum, where people are thinking maybe the president will still head that ministry. And then assign finance to Edo Solid Minerals to Alaki, and then defense to Badaru. You can find all of that on the front page and continue inside the paper. Emefiele to be arraigned today over alleged 6.9 billion naira procurement fraud. You can find more detail of that story. And also we have ECOWAS mocks Niger coup peace after terrorists kill many soldiers. You can start reading the story on the front page and continue on page 5. And then participatory democracy, reps to kick off town hall meeting soon. You can find that on page 5, and that is all of the Daily Times newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct, we have delivered 3,614,936 barrels of crude oil to local refineries, a statement coming from NUPRC. The big story on the paper, Tinubu hits the ground running, assigns portfolios to ministers. El Rufai Niger Delta Ministry missing on list. Appoint Wiki as FCT Minister Ayetola for Transport. You can find more details on page 22. Governor Abiodun commissions first phase of Iboro Imasayi Ayetoro Road. You can find more details on page 2. Adeleke appoints caretaker chairman for Osun local government. More details can be found on page 2. Still on Nigerian News Direct, reactions trail NNPCL $3 billion loan facility. NAF helicopter crash, terrorist group claims responsibility. Upon CBN warning, Naira increases at parallel market, trades at 910 Naira to a dollar, and we are hoping to see that the Naira gain more value. More details can be found on page 2. At the downside of the paper, over 500 buildings without approval earmarked for demolition in Apo district. This is coming from the FCTA. You can find more details inside the paper, and that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
On Daily Sun newspaper, NNPC moves to save Naira. The rider secures $3 billion loan to stabilize the currency. Naira appreciates to 890 Naira per dollar at the parallel market. You can find on page 2. As Tinubu assigned ministers' portfolio, we are having the names of Mahi as work, Wiki FCT, Baduru as defense. We also have here the list of the people and some of the pictures of the people that have actually made it. And we have other story here. Wiki joining APC will boost our chances in 2027. Coming from Gandoji, we will recall that a picture was seen yesterday on the paper when the talking about the former governor of Rivers State went to congratulate Gandoji as being the chairman of APC. And here we're seeing him saying that Wiki joining APC will boost their chances in 2027. Predict some parties will merge into ruling party. You can find more of that story on page 26. And still on Niger attack, chief of army staff visit troops, charges them to go after bandits. You can find more of that story on page 4. Also, we have varsity Spodi COE lecturers migrate abroad through our foreign scholarship. Coming from TETFON, you can find more detail of that on page 26. And still on the issue of Niger, Sahel Alliance call for immediate release of President Bazoum. You can find that on page 27. How Nigerian crew members Britain died in separate draining rain misship, with the rider several others missing, as Delta governor described the incident tragedy. You saw that on the paper yesterday as well when it happened, so you can find more detail on page 6. Ogun Tribunal Appeal Court restores Adebotu PDP vote buying allegation against Abiodun and the APC. You can find on page 6. On 2023 polls, Nigeria now in dear need of healing, rebuilding, says the PFN and Makinde. You can find that story on page 6, and that's all on the Daily Sun newspaper. But before we move further with other paper review, we'd love to open the phone lines. It is very important that we hear what your thoughts are concerning some of the portfolios, some of the ministers, and other stories that are flying on the paper. So when we come back, we'll take your call. Please stay tuned with us. welcome back. If you're just tuning in, it's still the dailies on Echo Television International. We've had quite a number of stories on the paper. We're still having the issue of Niger coup on the paper. We're still having, even most importantly, the portfolios of Nigerian ministers have been revealed for, awaiting inauguration on Monday. So quite a lot of mixed reaction coming from Nigerians. So we hope that you call us on our number that is displayed on your screen and let us hear what are your thoughts concerning all of this. Please do remember to be very, very civil with your language, no matter how the emotions are. We can only speak peace to the country as it is right now. And then you can drop your comment on our Facebook and YouTube channel. I still have Rachel Tenze with me in the studio. Thanks so much,
You're
Rachel.
welcome, Sarah.
All right, before the calls come in, let's continue with the paper review.
On Nigerian Tribune, Niger crisis, ECOWAS military chief to meet in Ghana. Nimasa says capsized drilling rig chartered by settlers operating without approval since 2016. You can find more details on page 7. The big story on the paper, Naira gains, NNPCL gets $3 billion loan to stabilize currency. The writer says speculators lose as local currency firms up to 759.86 naira per dollar at the INE window. Exchanges at between 770 naira and 810 naira at parallel market. NNPC explains how $3 billion loan will reduce fuel price. You can find more details on page 6. And we have a picture story showing Tinubu assigns portfolios, create new ministers, Edun Finance, Fabemi Justice, Wike, FCT, Umahi Works, Kiamu Aviation, and Adela Blue Power. You can find more details on page 8.
All right, let's take this call. Sorry. Good morning. Please
Good
go ahead,
morning.
sir.
Hello?
Good morning.
Yeah. About the portfolio. Hello?
Yes,
We're
good
with you. Please
morning.
go ahead,
Can
sir.
hear you.
About the portfolio.
All right.
Uh, all those ministers, the way then, the way the government share the ministers is not the right way at all at all. Let's be sincere. Let's be sincere to each other. It's not the right thing. Like we can just finish in governor. And then because of him to come to APC immediately, just give me FCT minister. It's not the right thing. This government, we don't understand how this government is they are going to. They do not even consider about the Nigeria, how the Nigeria is feeling. Maybe the Nigeria, the citizens are suffering or they are not suffering. They are just after themselves. We are very so sorry in this country. Let's be sincere. We are very sorry in this country. The way they are moving the government is not the right thing for the citizen. Let's be sincere to each other. Look at the issue of what happened just of recent in Niger State here. Eh? They are just patrol inside the town. All those ministers are just patrol inside the town. For them to enter the bush and go and face what is happening there, they are just patrolling inside the town. Yesterday, I'm going to work. Yesterday, I now see that they are destroying. They have even create fear into people that we are inside the town.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that
All right.
contribution. Yes, thank you. Of course, Stella, these are many other Nigerians won't be that pleased with the ministerial portfolio as it is, but just as you have said, Stella, we'll just wait and trust that these people are willing to function in their position despite what Nigerians' opinion are concerning the positions that have been given to them.
Of course.
And still on Nigerian Tribune, you can find more details of the portfolio on page 18, and that's all on Nigerian Tribune.
All right, let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper. We have APC considers merging with opposition as Chiduka warns of PDP extradition. You can find that story on page 3. Resurgence of killing threatening North Central states and food production. Here we have the picture story showing us 1,200 lives lost in the North Central due to banditry, kidnapping, and herders and farmers crisis. And here we have in 4 months 300 in Benue State, 250 in Nasarawa State, FCT none for now, And then we have in Niger State about 90, in Plateau State, which is the highest, about 600 people have been killed. In Kwara, we have one, in Kogi, one. And then for kidnapping, in Abuja, we have 15 people have been kidnapped. And then in Niger State, we have about 8. And that is really affecting food production because a lot of farmers cannot actually go to the farm, Rachel. You will recall that we saw yesterday the inflation rate, which was about 24.08%. And, you know, one of the biggest things that contributed to the inflation rate was because of the hike in food prices and transportation. That is one of the basic things. And then it will surprise you, Rachel. We saw in the previous paper before now that in the middle of this crisis, increase of fuel prices, we're seeing that Nigerians have looked for something else to substitute, and that is watching of movies. And we've seen how much is being has gone into that sector. And you remember I said that a lot of sectors are being neglected. So imagine if the Nigerian government can actually key into this right away, get into the entertainment industry and say, what can we do? If that is where Nigeria's attention is right now, if we can get revenue, then let's do something about it. But then you cannot talk about creating revenue in another place when people are hungry because farmers cannot go to the farm. So we hope that with all of this on the paper, it's not just for show.
We hope not.
This is for the government. This is for the security agency. It just beat my heart and make me sad the fact that even the security agency are under attack as it is right now. That is to show that we have snitches somewhere. Even in the security agency, if not, how do the bandits know? How do the terrorists know that these people that are coming? If somebody did not give them an info on all of this things, so we hope something will be done honestly, so that our farmers can actually get back to the farm. We really need this food. The president can try his best sending grains to all of these people. When people are not safe to go to the farm, nothing can be done about that. We saw what happened in Plateau State just about 2 days back, when some very young couples that just married in March were being killed. The vice principal of that school is presently in Just University Teaching Hospital receiving treatment. Quite a lot of things happening. Farmers are even scared to go to the farm. And if they are scared to go to the farm, there will be crisis. So I hope that the government will actually take this and do something about
if
that.
the government of Nigeria doesn't wake up and take insecurity seriously as it is, and making sure that it doesn't affect agriculture alongside adopting.
All right, let's take this call.
Program that
All right, please go ahead, sir.
So concerning the portfolios that the president, concerning the portfolios that the president appointed. So what I'm trying to say here is that the people, the man appointed, they will have good, but the portfolio attached to them. So at least he will have supposed to check this portfolio, then they assign it to other people. Then this once it gets to Wiki, at least Wiki will have supposed to handle Niger Delta. So we pray that God will help us in Nigeria.
I pray so too.
So it's well with us.
It's well. Thank you very much,
so
sir.
much, sir, for your input.
Thank you very much, sir, for that contribution. Yes, Celeste was saying, alongside fighting insecurity and adopting other measures of agriculture, we will find ourselves in the position where we will start importing even the grains that we need. And what that means is that whether we like it or not, this is just the tips of the iceberg regarding inflation when it comes to food prices in the market. And I'm just hoping that they wake up, and that's why we'll never get tired of saying, let the government please wake up, let them wake up. There have been farmers in Adamawa, rice farmers that have been affected by...
Let's take the score, right?
The serial list and their portfolios. It sounds so funny because our expectation was not met, because we thought by now we should be thinking of drafting technocrats into our ministries, not food for the boys as usual. For example, in the aviation industry, Honorable Kiruko Nyajota has been there for so many years as the chairman House Committee on Aviation. One expected the president to have appointed her as Minister of Aviation. Having Professor Kiyamu there, a greenhorn for that matter, is not the best interest of the aviation industry, knowing how highly technical it is. So that is another big challenge in the industry, because Professor Kiyamu will start learning from the grassroots, and it's not going to take him would have been made because she knows everything about the system. She was there before. And I give it to the administration too for making Umahi the minister for works. He deserves it because of his president at Ebonyi State. He has one of the best roads in that continent or in the country. And the airport is constructed also. It's a beautiful one. He's an engineer, and we hope he will bring his experience to that to work for the government. So see it as good for the boys always, that we should be very serious whenever we are doing things for this country. Because thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for your input.
Yes,
Thank you.
it's very vital. The aviation ministry is a high technology ministry, and when the government say they will be putting technocrats, we expected a technocrat for aviation ministry because if you know how global aviation has evolved and how people deal with aviation as it is now, you will know that Nigeria is backward in a lot of ways, and we need someone who would be up to date and fast-paced. But for Kiamo, he will be learning on the job, and we just hope that while he's learning, things are not leaving him behind and changing. But we trust and hope that these people will be up and doing on their toes to see that Nigeria becomes better regardless of their position. So yes, we just hope that the government does something about agriculture because we are still exporting raw materials. The little we have in crops that we grow on this country, for example, it's been threatened by insecurity, it's been threatened by backward agriculture techniques and machines that we use and all of that. So everything, I say it, everything boils around agriculture. The raw materials we use for finished goods is still agriculture, be it wood, be it cotton for our textile, be it rubber, for everything that we have still goes around agriculture. So it's one sector that the government shouldn't neglect. They don't have the luxury of thinking whether or not we should invest and take agriculture to the next level because it revolves around everything.
Let's take this call too. Good morning.
Good morning.
Please go ahead, sir. We are with you. Where are you calling from, please?
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm calling from Edo State.
All right, please go ahead, sir, with your contribution.
Yes. My contribution is on this week being the FCC.
Hello, sir. Are you there? Please reduce the volume of your TV set so you can hear us.
Minister. Like somebody said,
I think
Hello, are you there? All right, sorry, we'll have to cut the call.
we have to.
Please, our callers, do remember to turn down the volume of your TV set. That is the only way we can hear you clearly in the studio, and other, viewers at home can also hear, get your point, because it is very important to us. Please do remember to do that. So, Rachel, you actually adding
Yes,
up
that's just what I have to say about agriculture. The government shouldn't have the luxury to think whether or not to invest in it. They should do whatever it takes because the little we are able to produce in our country is now being affected by insecurity. And it will be sad if we find ourselves beginning to import basic crops, basic food that could have been grown on the soil of this country just because insecurity didn't allow agriculture to thrive.
Appointed ministers, before they were appointed, I know the president himself must have known their worth. So everybody is important in the country. We are all knowledgeable, but we should leave the job for the owner to do it. Let us test them before we fault them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
right. Thank you so much for your input. Just like you said, Rachel, right now, a lot of people are raising concerns on this minister list. Right now, Nigerians don't care how much the government knows all of this thing. Nigeria want to know that the government care about them in everything that they do. So that's what Nigerians are concerned right now. They don't care if the people you have good relationship with them. They don't want to know that. All they want to know is that you care about them and that you put the right people to take the country to the next level. Well, let me quickly round up on the Guardian newspaper. We have Capside oil rig operating illegally on Nigerian waters since 2016, says Nimasa. And if they know that, why have they left them there? That's a question Nigerians will ask. You can find more of that story on page 7. We have Nigerians call for war, volunteer Sahel alliance seek release of President Bazoum. That's still talking about the Niger coup. And then Nigeria needs sustainable solution to resident doctor strike. Well, we hope they find that solution quick and fast, because a lot of Nigerians are dying because no doctors to attend to them. You can find that on page 2. And that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On First News newspaper, ECOWAS military chiefs to meet in Ghana amid Niger unrest. The big story on the paper, Tinubu to swear in ministers designate Monday. Appoint Wiki FCT Minister Umahi Works, Edu Finance. See full list of the ministers and designations inside the paper. 6.9 billion naira fraud, federal government to arraign Emefiele, 2 orders today. Why police can't vacate checkpoints, coming from the IGP. And on forex crisis, NNPCL secures $3 billion loan to stabilize naira. First Lady office is your turn, Patience Jonathan tells Remi Tinubu. CDS visits wounded soldiers in Kaduna, charges troops to defend Nigeria. FCID invites
All right,
Lagos
let's take
land.
this call. Sorry, Rachel.
Experience lockdown in Nigeria. We experience lock money in Nigeria. We're supposed to forecast about what we will experience in future. Can we maybe think the next thing will be lock A? That is the A that we are breeding. Please, we should think about our country as the only country that we have, so that we will be able to stand taller than our confusion. So that is what I'm contributing.
Right.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much
sir,
for
for
that
your inputs.
contribution. Still on First News newspaper, we have FCID invites Lagos Land and Housing Ministry Permanent Secretary over land grabbing allegation. Wiki's visit more parties to merge with APC. Soon a statement coming from Ganduje. And we have for our sports, we see Man City beat Sevilla on penalties to win the first UEFA Super Cup. You can find more details inside the paper, and that's all the news on First News newspaper.
A New Telegraph newspaper on fuel marketers confirm reintroduction of subsidy, says it's quasi-deregulation. You can find more of that story inside the paper. On Seplat Energy, capside oil rig operated illegally for 8 years. You can find that story on page 8 as well. Reps plan town hall meeting to encourage civil participation. You can find that on page 4. Makinde seek 5-year single tenure for political offices. We hope that even the 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years they have, they will do well before they will actually see giving them the 5-year single tenure for political offices. The ex-First Lady, Deme Jonathan, visit Mrs. Tinubu, pledges her support to her, at least coming from somebody who is experienced as the First Lady of the country. Naira free fall has pushed workers, pensioners into extreme poverty, coming from Waba. You can find that on page 4. The big story for New Telegraph here says on forex crisis, NNPCL secure 2.1 trillion naira, $3 billion loan to stabilize naira. We have the writer under saying Nigeria Eurobond drops as federal government halt fuel price increase. Local currency appreciate to 890 naira per dollar at the parallel market. Loan will stabilize naira, settle taxes, loyalties in advance, coming from the presidency. NNPCL crook for Afri loan may jeopardize the planned privatization, coming from expert. You can find more on page 2 and 7. We're still having some of Tinubu's ministers' picture on the front page of the paper. Other story here saying Nigeria ranks second globally in prevalence of malnutrition, coming from the USAID. This is really a sad one. We're having the issue of, malnutrition and poverty showing up on our paper again. We hope we'll do something, because it's still related to talking about food crisis in the country. We will bring our nation enemies to their knees, coming from the Nigerian Air Force. And we have Unilag, the first Tinubu's order hike school fees again as Ebo University approve installment payment for students. And then we are having TED Fund Malls suspending foreign scholarship. You can find more of that on page 3 and 5. We also have still on Tinubu's apportion ministerial portfolios. We're still having some of the names being shown here, and then the ministers to be sworn in on Monday, which you can find on page 2, and that's all the New Telegraph newspaper.
On Daily Independent, NNPC secures $3 billion loan to stabilize Naira. On Ogun trial, a pit court restores Abetupu's vote buying allegations against Obiodun. The big story on the paper, APC working to merge with other parties for 2027, a statement coming from Ganduje. On back of forex volatility, TED Fund may suspend overseas scholarships. You can find more details on page 29. And as much as we are out there saying Nigerians need to school here and we have to make our education system, I believe that this will be a tough one, Sele, for students abroad. And I just really hope that something is being done for those who are already on scholarship, that this won't affect their study, but that they'll be able to finish.
Sure.
Perhaps in the subsequent year, no scholarship being given, but I just hope that the government does something to be able to aid those who have already started with the scholarship to finish. You can find more details on page 29. Drama at Enugu Guba Tribunal as PDP opposes Labour Party attempt to amend blunders. You can find more details on page 7. Navy arrests vessel laden with 350,000 liters of stolen diesel. Bottlenecks stifling businesses will be removed. You can find that details on page 2, a statement coming from Tinubu. NCAA stops aviation security strike, promises intervention. Still on the paper, we have ministerial portfolios. Tinubu assigns FCT to Wike, Labour to Lalong, works to Umahi. At the downside of the paper, we have Kano raises committee to screen 10,800 workers employed by Ganduje. The details can be found on page 6, and that's all news on Daily Independent.
Right, let me round it up with the National Star, where we have over 25 million Nigerians facing acute malnutrition. Still coming from the USAID on page 2. We have Nigeria now at bottom, no longer giant of Africa, coming from Governor Makinde. You can find on page 17. PDP needs urgent strategic overall to remain relevant, coming from Chiduka. You can find on page 18. We're still having about 6.9 billion naira fraud, and Mifele, 2 others to be arranged today. Niger State at the mercy of bandits, says Governor Bago. You can find that on page 21. And then still we're having DSS uncover fresh plot to attack Abuja Kaduna train. Lagos Muslims stage protests against Sanwo-Olu commissioners list alleged marginalization. You can find on page 9. Aviation workers suspend planned strike as NCAA intervenes. You can find on page 3. The big story for the paper, NNPC secured $3 billion crude oil loan from Afris Bank. Facility meant to stabilize the Naira, drive down the cost of petrol, and then Naira strengthen against dollar, trade at 910 Naira per dollar. You can find detail of any of the story that is of interest to you in the paper. And that's how far we can go on the program this morning. Thanks so much, Rachel, for always doing this with me. We're too really grateful to our crew members. Thank you to our supporters, our viewers. Thank you to the producer, and also to the general manager of Echo Television. Until we come your way again, please do have a blessed day ahead.